Hey everyone, welcome to the Wheels of Walking podcast, a podcast with a guy in a wheelchair and a guy not in a wheelchair.
What up?
You know, one of the most interesting things to me that I really love to hear from people, but it takes a while to like get this out of them, is what their legitimate, like actual first impression of me was. And I was talking with Jalila the other night because we're in the middle of watching this show called Love is Blind, and you basically, the premise of the show, if you're on Netflix, is that you basically meet and talk and date these people without actually seeing them, and then eventually you do see them. And you know, I was asking her like, "Hey, what was your first impression of me?" And she like told me all about it.
I was there for that. Well, maybe not the first impression, but I was there for the first time you guys talked.
For the
At the gym.
For the what the where are your organs question?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know if you were there for that one, but
I was.
So that was the first.
It was like mildly uncomfortable.
Oh, I mean, I'm not surprised. What was so funny is like I was thinking about how classic of a Richard line is that. Be like, "Excuse me, Miss Question, where are your organs?" Like, what a dumb pickup line. But anyway, so we got to talking, and I was like, so she's like, yeah, at the time you weren't really using your wheelchair. She's like, I knew that you did use a wheelchair. She's like, I saw you walking around, but I knew it was different, but I couldn't put my finger on it. She's like, but what I did see was the beard, the tattoos, the muscles, and the little like stringy bean t-shirt, like shirt you were wearing. She's
and
like,
she was like, "Don't talk to me, don't talk to me, don't talk." Go, oh shit, he's coming to talk to me.
She was like, honestly, I wanted to avoid you at all costs. And she goes, I didn't even notice that you were walking weird because I was too busy judging you for being a douchebag fuckboy. And I was like, whoa, damn. She's like, but the moment you opened your mouth, my perception was immediately changed.
My perception was changed. I knew for a fact he was a fuckboy. I'm just kidding.
and it's funny because like my perception of her too is like I got the vibes of like the shy nerdy girl. Like I got shy nerdy girl vibes from her. And then when I went and talked to her, and she was just so dope. She was like a bro, you know what I mean? I was like, oh damn, like this changed my perception too. And I'm always like just so curious. I mean, even like strangers in public or people that I meet, that I talk to, or, you know, I think everyone was on the edge of their seat, you know, like what happened to him? Like what are these things in the past?
Oh, yeah.
Like what
I get the questions.
Like what are these things, you know, that he talks about when he's like, yeah, I've been through some hard times, but you know, I've been able to make it through. And, you know, she goes, I was always wondering, is the wheelchair one of the hard times? And it's like, yeah. But it was just really interesting to dig into her perspective. And, you know, I always am so genuine, like curious, like what do these people think of me, and you know, what is their perception of me, and then when they talk to me or when they not talk to me. And you know, even recently, like I've been, you know, meeting and hanging out and talking with some people that mostly only know me for my online presence, and then they meet me in person and they're like, wow, not what I expected. But like in a good way, because like you guys in the podcast, you guys know me really well. Like you get like a jovial, friendly, goofy kind. Like you understand my thoughts. But like when I'm on video,
you're not jovial on video, bro.
Well, I don't know. I just like on video, like I can come off as like I can see why people think I'm some like arrogant douchey cock. You know, like I understand why they might think that, or it could fit whatever model they have in their head. You know, whatever. The bottom line is I just am always so intrigued by people's, you know, perspectives of, you know, what wheelchair users are, or what it's like to, you know, be in a wheelchair, or just in general, like what they think. And
the first time I met you, I didn't really know what to expect because I thought you were in a wheelchair. But then when you like came outside and walked, I was like, okay. Like I honestly was just like, I'm just going to go into this with like no like expectations, because I knew I was going to sit down and have a talk with you because it was to record a podcast. So I was just like, I'm like, okay, I guess he walks a little bit too. Like, cool. Like, I think I saw him in a wheelchair, but like, I don't know if it was like permanent. I didn't know if it was like, I just had like no idea.
That was when I was at the art studio, and I think there was 4 or 5 steps to get up, in and out.
Yeah. So it just like was annoying.
And you know, I remember I didn't have my crutches with me at the time, and I just kind of like waddled down the hill and like gave you a hug and then like waddled back up. But as soon as I got back inside, I plopped back in the chair.
Yeah.
I'm always so just curious.
That conversation is weird. Going back and listening to that first podcast,
Is it?
Because I was just asking so many like weird questions that now I'm like, oh, that's funny. Like
Episode 47 for any of you guys who want to go back.
On my old podcast, the Andrew Deitch podcast.
Andrew Deitch podcast, episode 47.
Yeah, it was just so funny because like there's just so many things where you're like I'm kind of leading you and you're kind of like it's a long story kind of thing, and it's just funny because now I know like why you're kind of like laughing about it, because it's like, oh, so like, do you think you're ever gonna walk again, or like things like that, and you're like, well, like, you know what I mean, like you're just,
like, that's like a 45-minute answer right there.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many things where like we get into it and it's just like, oh my god, that's so funny that I didn't know that, or I thought that, or whatever.
Well, but that podcast was really important to me in my development and my growth, because I had never told my story in full to anyone ever, and then it goes public, and it gets like
weird,
and it gets like a good response, and then even myself, like, I had a real skewed perception of, you know, my life and my story, and, you know, what was important and what wasn't important, and blah blah blah. And then I like listened to that podcast probably 4, 5, 6, I don't even know, a bunch of times, just kind of being like, wait a minute, that's me?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
it just kind of like blew me away, because I was even kind of getting like
inspired by your own story.
Yeah, and I still kind of do that too. Like, even in my current state, you know, where I'm healing from this injury, like, I'm going back and watching some of my old videos, and I'm like, damn it, Richard from the past, why you got to be right? You know, like, I'm like, I use my own videos to kind of like pump myself up and motivate myself, because like I do have wisdom and I do have experience, and a lot of the times I don't even want to hear what I have to say. Like, you've even like pulled some stuff on me before where I'm like, quit using my words on me. You know, it's like, quit saying what I was going to say to me if I would say it to me. Okay.
WWRD.
It was perfect. AJ, do you remember your first impression whenever you met me?
I do. So it was around the time when I first started working for Andrew and doing the Andrew Deitch podcast. And I remember hearing about you and the project of Wheels to Walking in like early development. And
this is before we did anything public, or like before we went to LA the first time. And
yeah,
I
think this was like a little bit after that.
No, because me and AJ met for the first time like almost exactly a year ago, and we had just gotten back from LA at that point, right?
Yeah.
So like we had just done our first like Wheels to Walking trip, but we hadn't like launched the Why Do I Walk? How can I walk? Whatever the one.
Yeah.
The one that has 1,000,000.7.
I remember
views.
seeing like the early edits of it.
Yeah.
Oh, little asterisk side note before you move on. For those of you who are really loving this podcast, and every week you're like, yes, new podcast, we have 40 plus on our Patreon. So it's
40 plus old episodes.
It's $1. They're super old. They're archaic. They're done on different microphones. We're mostly just dicking around. And
it's way more casual and way more like just raunchy
hair down.
Way
more hair down. But one of the things I wanted to point out was like, I think I've been re-listening to them just to like kind of catch some perspective about what's happened in a year, you know, to really like help me be like, oh, okay, like we've done a lot, we can do more, whatever. And one of the episodes you and I were talking about for like, I think like 50 minutes straight about like how unique and recognizable I am, and how I can take that and use it to my advantage. And it came off a cock. Like, it's so egotistical, and I'm cringing the whole time, because the point I was trying to make was like, hey, wheelie boys, like, don't be ashamed of who you are. Like, you need to like embrace your uniqueness, and like you're going to be memorable. So like, don't think that you stand out for the wrong reasons. But I never made that point. We just keep talking about like, yo, I'm so unique. When I go into like bars, like bouncers let me in the side door. You know, like I'm so unique that like everyone remembers me. Like I kept like I'm cringing so fucking hard.
I remember this conversation. We've had it a lot of times actually.
Yeah, but it's always in the context of like,
it's in the context of use that fact to your advantage.
Yeah, use all that unwanted attention for a good reason. But anyway,
Yeah.
so continue, AJ. I just wanted to remind everyone all those
of the old podcasts
there's
that they exist.
Tons of podcasts exist, but please forgive us. We even did one where we were like laying in bed and I started playing on my phone in the middle of the episode.
I called you out.
You're like, are you on your phone? I'm like, yeah. Another one I did in my underwear while we were drinking LaCroix and burping the whole time.
Literally, that happened. I'm pretty sure there's one where you like farted. Like there's like a bunch of crazy stuff. Like
there was one where we started talking about tabs. AJ, you know what we're talking about. When you open up all your tabs on your special websites.
Oh yeah.
We had to talk about that. At the house.
We're not talking about that now, but we're saying on the old.
Anyways, go listen to it.
So
AJ, what was first impression of Richard?
Continue
AJ.
on first impressions. Yeah.
All right. So it first started when I had a small gig. I was just helping a friend out do a video, and I met Andrew's brother, Matthew, and Matthew was like hyping Andrew up. He's like, dude, Andrew just bought this new camera. He just bought this new computer. He just got this, and he's been working with this new client named Richard. And then he showed me this like hype video with like the old,
yeah.
And then he's like wheeling around with like going in circles. I'm like, oh, dude, this guy's dope.
It was probably the confined video.
Yeah.
Because like I've never really had a bad perception on people in wheelchairs like at all. I like understand that culture a little bit. So the first episode I was on was Ed Bolian. Don't remember what episode number that is. But
oh yeah, I showed up after and like talked to Ed for a little while.
Right.
Yeah, because basically I had already set up the podcast studio in Richard's place, but AJ hadn't started working with me yet, so it was like. It was AJ's first time being in Richard's apartment, but hadn't met Richard yet.
No, but I've been in. I was there before. Like the first time we met, you're like, the studio's up here, and I was like, okay, let's go look at it. Well,
Did you meet Richard though?
I didn't meet him at the time. You just showed me the studio space.
Yeah.
And then
but you probably met me at the end of the Ed Bolian episode.
At the end of the Ed Bolian episode, you came in. You're like, hey, I'm Richard. I'm like, oh, this is the cool guy. This is the cool guy. And I was like so intrigued. I was like, oh, dude, this guy's dope. And then as I got to know Richard, I even thought he was even more dope and even more dope. And
well, shit, man,
just really, really cool guy. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah,
I guess it's the idea of like you got a lot of like pre-introduction to me. I guess
I got a lot of just like watching that video, I was just like, oh yeah, this guy's cool. But
yeah, and then I was talking about you and stuff because we had a meeting like down at Panera.
Yeah, down at Panera.
Yeah, so
which is somewhere not anywhere close or far.
Yeah, so about that. Yeah, but one of the things, so there is a person on YouTube that I want to say like a year or two ago, I would say 2.5 years ago, was probably the most hated person on the internet.
Yeah, probably.
Like regularly, like it broke out to the mainstream to where even like the mainstream and like celebrities and news stations and everything were just ripping this guy apart. And because he made a ridiculous error in judgment. And before that, I don't think I really knew who he was. I just
really
like I knew his name, but like
I mean, we're talking about Logan Paul.
Yeah, I was gonna drop that in a second, but
sorry.
So
I
knew his name, but I never ever messed with his vlogs or his content, and I was like, I so don't care about some like Viner who is like some blonde boy who like is so arrogant and so stupid and so unchecked ego, and like I have no desire. He makes videos for 11, 13, 15-year-olds. Like I'm just not interested in that. And then I think it was you told me about the podcast, and it's called Impulsive, and I was like, dude, I'm not interested. And then I like listened to a few episodes.
I don't even remember why I was telling you. It was like someone went on it, and I was like, you should go listen to this or something.
I think
like
someone on it, and then I started listening, and I was like, oh, I kind of like this guy. Like he grew on me like more and more because he's like so self-aware and he's like changing up what he's doing and he's got different people around him and he's just like growing and developing. And like over the past couple of years, he's turned into someone I really like and I really admire. And I like and admire his team and his work ethic. And, you know, it's gotten into something really interesting where he's even like aged up his content and like changed up his vlogs. And like he does a bunch of like really like cool big like brand deals and like intellectual property and like merch and like all this stuff. And so, you know, it's interesting because like he's still, you know, I tell people, be like, oh, you should check out some of Logan Paul's videos, and like, oh, the Japan guy, you know, the guy who films dead bodies. And I'm like, yeah, but he's also a professional boxer and, you know, also has like first year he put out his merch line, made $35 million on his own fashion line. Like there's a lot to the guy that's like, like really impressive. And anyway,
this is my thing with him. Yeah. So I watched him from the beginning, like from Vine. Like I actually did like his Vines, and I used to even like try to copy him in certain ways. Like I thought it was fun. I thought he was funny on Vine.
Because him and Jake at that age when they were on Vine was like the perfect age and era for that, you know?
Yeah,
6-second physical comedy skits with stunts.
Yeah. But I mean, Jake was still in high school and Logan was a freshman in college. So it was kind of funny because he was at college and Jake was back home.
Still in Ohio.
Yeah. Well, they were both, they were in Ohio. He was at like Ohio University. But I think,
Ohio State.
Not Ohio State, Ohio University. It was like green colors. Not Ohio State. But anyways, so Gary Vaynerchuk started a Vine agency called Grape Story. That was a Vine and Snapchat agency with Jerome Jarre. And I remember Logan was one of the first people that got like signed with Gary. And I really like Gary, and I already thought Logan was funny on Vine. And so like I actually really liked him. And even like I would show like their videos to like my mom, and even my mom like started liking him. Like she like ended up following him on Snapchat and all this stuff. She's like, I was like, oh, that reminds me of Logan Paul. Or like she'd be like, did you see Logan Paul Snapchat today? Like she literally was like a fan of like Logan and Jake Paul. And then like as they got older and got more and more unchecked ego and more fuckboyish and like, you know, like showing off their abs and just being like super douchey and stuff. Even my mom was
Jake still hasn't got out of that.
For sure.
Jake has a lot of problems, and the Federal Trade Commission is actually going to, I think, really crack down on him because he very illegally advertises to kids a lot.
Logan was doing that too, but let's. Yeah, but anyways, even my mom was like, yeah, I don't really like these guys anymore because they just turned into something that they weren't. Like, they kind of let the, like, fame and the ego really get to them. And I think that's what ultimately manifested in the whole Japan video. It was because he was doing a lot of, like, douchey stuff, but it was, like, kind of under the radar just because it was just for kids. Like, the only people that were really watching his content was kids, and no one was, like, checking him because...
And that's also the danger of the daily vlog is every day you have to do something even more extreme to gain attention. And, you know, he even talks about, he's like, when I go back, he's like, I literally can't go back and watch my own vlogs because they make me cringe so hard. And he goes, I want to punch that dude in the face. He's like, that kid, no.
I mean, I think everyone does. Like, his old videos are so bad.
I mean, I think if you don't go back and want to punch yourself in the face, you didn't do it right, because that means you're not growing. I mean, I think about my videos, like especially in the beginning, there's some videos where I use some like incorrect language or like some umbrella language, or I like describe someone as wrong. Like some of my like, you know, internalized ableism like slips out, you know, like I'm like, ooh, geez, you know, looking back. And it's funny because I'll still get comments on those videos like critiquing things I said, and I'm like, no, you're totally right. Like I definitely like that is correct. I did make some umbrella statements that are not true. Or like, I shouldn't have said that, you know, the transporters at the airport are only for, you know, old people or overweight people. Like, that's not cool. I shouldn't have said that. Or, you know, I shouldn't have said, you know, confined to a wheelchair or bound to a wheelchair or whatever. Cause like that's not right language. You know, it's like you look back at your videos and you kind of cringe a little bit.
Yeah. You even say like permanently bound in one of the episodes or something, but it wasn't necessarily you were saying it about yourself or anything. You were like, just because someone's in a wheelchair doesn't mean they're permanently bound. But even that language is still like weird because it's like no one's really permanently bound to a wheelchair. Everyone gets out to sleep.
and shower and drive
Yeah.
and play sports and lay on the ground. It's like no one's
Yeah.
like strapped into this thing.
Yeah, but even like people that you might not even like, you see like someone in a power chair that like, looks like they're probably in the chair all day or whatever. And it's like, even them, like they're getting out to do other things.
Yeah, you look at like Shane, from Squirmy and Grubs.
Yeah.
Like he's got spinal muscular atrophy type 1 or 3. I forget which one is the more extreme one.
Mhm.
I think 1 is the more extreme one, and then 3 is like the least extreme one.
Yeah, or even like TJ from the hunting video.
Yeah, those dudes. Yeah, they're just like they aren't strapped in there. They aren't stuck in there. Like,
yeah, I think the biggest thing that I took away from like the TJ video was like how from hanging out with TJ for that weekend and everything, or whenever it was. I don't know if it was weekend during the week, but it was crazy how like even though his physical body is like so impaired that he it's just really challenging for him.
he can't even breathe on his own.
He can't even breathe on his own. He has a breathing machine, but he's able to use his like phone, and he can like text you, and like he like on the internet he can like be normal. Like with technology, he can he can talk, text you
with
back.
the help of his friends, with his mind and his voice. Like
He can take videos, like
Yeah.
he can do all kinds of stuff, and it's just like so cool because it's almost kind of like what you're talking about the Love Is Blind show. It's like you don't really know what to expect from someone, and first impressions are very very they imprint on you. You immediately see something and you have a reaction. Like you see someone like TJ and you're like, oh, that guy probably can't do anything. He's probably so and because he he has a difficulty speaking because he can't breathe on his own, all this kind of stuff. Like you start to assume like, oh, he can't, like his brain doesn't work like mine. His brain's still working at the same capacity, but he just can't.
you just tend to get more comfortable around people that over time.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we're in the U.S., so it's like, think about your first experience of someone wearing like a hijab. Like that might have been really uncomfortable, but then you get to know them and you're like, oh, it's just a person that like wears something over their head.
Yeah,
like there's so many like interesting things that would come, but
yeah.
So kind of to
go back to the Logan Paul thing.
back to what the point we're talking about is,
Yeah.
he was on his podcast and he was talking about how he had an interaction with someone who's a wheelchair, and his perspective was like really cool, and we're gonna roll that video and show it to you. But one thing I want to talk about Logan is like, he's not new to hanging out with people with disabilities. Like his best friend is a dwarf named Evan, and Evan has gone through hell and back just by being a little person, and he was even on a very emotional episode of the podcast. So if you want to go back and watch the podcast with Evan, Mike, and Logan. So this is not his first time,
interacting with people with disabilities. Or whatever.
Yeah. So just get a load of this and
yeah,
check it out.
we're gonna play it.
Yeah.
And what amplified that for me, because I saw some sad shit that day. There was a young man who came up to me in the airport. He wheeled his wheelchair up to me. Dude had the fucking best energy. He's just like, mate. He was from the UK. He's like, I'm a big fan. My girlfriend's a big fan. Would you mind making a video for her? Her name's Tully. So I made a video for him. We just talked in the airport, had a brief conversation, and this dude smiled at me, just like lit me up. Get on the plane. As I'm deboarding the plane, I see him. Fuck. I'm gonna get emotional actually talking about this. Fuck.
There's always a Paul brother crying on this show. It's every episode.
Let the man weep.
Oh no, I love seeing it. I didn't even think he had feelings. This is great.
So I'm getting off the plane and I see this dude seated towards the front of the plane as everyone's deboarding. And he's waiting there, and I was like, hey man. He goes, thanks again, Logan, I appreciate it. I go, bro, like, have a good day. Yeah, it's my pleasure. And I walk past him and I realize he's waiting for the entire plane to deboard before he gets in his wheelchair and then leaves the plane. And like that made me realize, like, you don't even think about or understand the problems that people are having, and putting your life into perspective. Like I got so much like empathy and respect for him and the way he moves about his life, and still having like an energy that he had. And it just, yeah, like a real sense of like existential hopelessness stemmed from like all this shit. I'm like, I'm crying about it, but yeah, man.
Do Do you want to know why he's so happy? By the way, he's a perspective expert. When I was in New York City last week with Lana, we went for a quick night. She got done with what she was doing at her job. Whatever, she did some feature. It was 3:30 in the morning. We walked over to Joe's Pizza. We were walking in.
She
Probably
was
about the
stripping.
same age as that guy, same kind of build, white guy in a wheelchair. Except he wasn't waiting for everyone to deboard a plane. He was sitting outside Joe's Pizza in 26-degree weather with a sheet over him, shooting heroin into his foot. Same. So like it's just a perspective thing. Like that guy Logan made that video for, he knows that someone somewhere is suffering immensely worse than he is.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's but yeah, I mean, I saw the effect that it had on him because
Well, it's just like, yo, if he is moving about his life with the positivity that he has,
Yeah.
what the fuck am I gonna complain about? Some petty bullshit. Like, yo, shut the fuck up, dude. People are always whining about something, and it can get so much worse. Like, please just check yourself. Check yourself before you whine about something, because there are people like with legitimate problems out there, people who are legitimately struggling with something, and to see just like a lot of these just babies, bro, snags on Twitter, just saying shit about snags, bro, sensitive new age guy. Something. I don't know, bro.
Amazing.
I don't know. I
Yeah,
just started
so
super
That was good.
What Logan touched on that I think is pretty cool, and then also Mike touched on too, is like being a wheelchair user. Like, I hate the idea when people like come up to you and they're like, "Oh, you're so inspirational, man." It's like, I'm literally just living my life, not that inspirational.
I'm just rolling.
But
If you were riding a skateboard, it wouldn't be that inspirational.
right, exactly. But it forces perspective on the people around you.
Exactly.
So the people around you, they get a forced perspective, and all of a sudden their excuses are immediately illegitimate. Every excuse that they have in their head not to do whatever they want to do, or whatever bad attitude they're in, or whatever they're going through, they're like, ah, shit, I can't think that anymore. I can't feel that anymore. And kind of like what Mike touched on about, the wheelchair user, the guy, I don't even know his name, but yo, P.S., if you're listening to this, or if you're on my Instagram or on my main channel, hit me up. I want to know what it was like to chat with Logan. He has also had it worse, just like all of us. Like, if you're in a place where you're happy and you're smiling and you're positive and you're a wheelchair user, a person with a disability, you've probably been through a time in your life where you weren't that way. More than likely, like, coming to acceptance and coming to surrender and, forgiveness and choosing joy and choosing happiness usually comes because there was a time when it was worse. And, I think about,
you know that firsthand.
I know that firsthand. I think about the guy he's talking about is like, that guy on the street in cold weather shooting heroin in his foot. My addiction was not that extreme. I wasn't shooting drugs on the streets of New York City, but like, I was I was the same kind of addict.
You were shooting drugs in your crusty old bed.
I mean, I wasn't shooting anything. I never did heroin, but like,
you weren't shooting it. You were doing opiates. Though.
Yeah, same thing. But it's like I would have met that guy in rehab. I would have met that guy in meetings. Like, I know who that person is. Like, I'm friends with that kind of people. So it's like, yeah, we all go through stuff. We all have issues and challenges, and we all have our demons and what we're going through. But it's like, you can see one of mine, but also it's that forced perspective. And I hope, honestly, even us introducing you to that brief clip of Logan, if you had a negative perspective of Logan, you might have a different one now, because I think he's grown up so much. I think he's changed so much. I think he's put the right team around him. He's become really self-aware to the point where it's like, he is not the same person he was years ago, and it's like, time to forgive.
After watching that, my perception has definitely changed.
Yeah, it's like time to forgive and forget almost. It's like, well, not forget, but at least forgive.
Not forget, but forgive, because the hard thing that people forget about too is like, the redemption arc, right? Like people fuck up. Like if you fuck up in your everyday life, let's say you get a DUI or something like that and you fuck up and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I was such a fucking idiot. I knew I shouldn't have drank. I knew I shouldn't have driven, but I still was a dumbass. I still did this thing, blah, 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 blah. And it like fucks up your life because you got your license, you know, like all these things that happen.
License revoked, $10,000 worth of fines, permanent record. Like,
yeah, like all that
whole
kind of stuff.
thing.
And it was all because you made like a dumb decision. Maybe even worse. Maybe even you got into an accident and like fucking killed someone. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that was a momentary lapse in judgment, like Logan said in his apology video.
A severe
And continuous lack of judgment or something like that. Anyways, but but it's crazy because you could kind of probably hide that from the rest of the world, and yeah, it would suck for a while, but like someone that meets you in a couple of years like isn't gonna know that you have a DUI.
Like,
that
oh
you had
yeah,
a DUI
it's
or something
the DUI
like that.
guy. It's like
No one's gonna know that.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that Logan was in the public eye and
Such a public figure.
and I'm not trying to defend anything that he did. A bunch of the stuff that he did was really dumb and really stupid.
completely
And
reprehensible.
he did need someone. He needed an event like that to check him because he was being a fucking dickhead and he was out of control. That's the thing. He was out of control and he had a bunch of yes men around him. But the thing is, where do we have that redemption arc for someone? Like, there's always got to be, at some point, humans make mistakes and people can change, dude. Like, you've changed. You've had a crazy transformation. Like, you used to be a drug addict that was, you know, you literally were ready to kill yourself, and now you're doing something meaningful for the world. And, you know, people have this perception of you now, but they, you know, even Jalila, she talks about how, like, it's hard for me to even imagine you being that person because you are completely,
She almost doesn't believe my stories.
Yeah.
She's like, that can't be real.
Exactly. And like Mike on Logan's podcast, he talks about that a lot too, because he had similar struggles. And, you know, it's crazy because you've said this before, like, oh, it's easy. You just have to change every single thing about your life and about you.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you can get out of this. You just have to change every single thing.
Yeah,
you have to become a different person.
It's not easy, it's simple.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, because
it's simple.
It's like, oh, it's simple. You just have to change everything. And
which is very, very, very
because one of the things I learned about myself was that my instincts broke, meaning my first response to everything, I had to put the brakes on and be like, skirt, what's the opposite of this? And then I'm like, that's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. You have to like rewire your brain.
Yeah, I'm like, let me, like, what's my first immediate reaction to this? Okay, that's wrong. What's the opposite of this reaction? Okay, that's probably right. Mm-hmm. You know, I had to relearn how to have feelings and relearn how to have emotions and relearn how to be balanced. And it was crazy. I mean, there's a reason why when people go into drug rehab, they get diagnosed with shit tons of mental illnesses, because if you look at the evidence, behavioral evidence, you get marked up as, you know, this bipolar schizophrenic with, you know, borderline personality disorder and anxiety and depression. And you're like, well, yeah, everyone does when they're on drugs. Like, everyone has that when they're on drugs. And
totally,
you know, you're right. It's all about, you know, changing your perspectives. And, you know, like I was having a moment.
But like, where's that redemption arc? You know, like, we got to have some sort of discourse publicly that we can have a redemption arc for some of these people, because I think these like woke social justice warrior type of people are like, no, they fucked up, they blah 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 blah, they don't deserve a second chance, they got their, you know. And I think that there's got to be, I mean, yes, granted,
the idea of unforgivableness,
exactly,
I don't agree with unless it was something that was actually unforgivable.
There are some things that are unforgivable. I would say probably intentional murder, you know, like if you're just going out and killing someone, like you kind of lost the privilege, like you took that away from someone else. There's a lot of things
I think about
that are
sexual assault, you know, rape, corruption, you know, like those are kind of like unforgivable.
Yeah, there's
things.
a lot of things that are unforgivable, and it's kind of a slippery slope of like, where do we draw that line? But I do think that there are some, you know, for example, like, you know, Louis C.K. People are mad that he's like playing clubs again, like he's being a comedian again, and that people are like supporting him and all this stuff. And
because they
like,
thought they canceled him.
They thought they canceled him, and the same thing happened with Logan Paul. Like, people thought that, like, and he was talking about this on another podcast, about how as long as you can stay, like, he was on a Fox and Friends or like Fox Business podcast, like, and he like he looked kind of like an idiot. He was promoting the Challenger games or whatever. This was a while ago.
Oh yeah, he did that on purpose. He was on Fox Business.
Yeah, and he kind of did it on purpose.
He was just trolling people.
Yeah, he was like, I'm the fastest man on earth. And people that didn't get that he was kind of joking with it shared the video on Twitter, got like 5.8 million views. And then all these people are like, what? I thought Logan Paul was canceled. How is he on Fox Business? Wow, I can't believe this idiot's still around. And it's like, you do realize that by sharing the video, you're keeping him relevant.
Yeah.
Because the opposite of someone who is the biggest fan is not a hater. It's someone who's completely indifferent and doesn't even know you exist. Because a hater
is just a fan in disguise, dude. Yeah.
He was talking about how you can actually mobilize your haters to promote you if you know how to kind of fuck with them in the right ways.
Yeah, he's like, when they were like, you're known as being a controversial YouTuber, and he goes, ex-controversial YouTuber.
That's funny.
And they're like, you're known for making millions of dollars. He's like, yeah, but I'm also fastest man in the world. You know, like,
yeah,
he just found a way, and like, that's why
he was just fucking with
that's
them.
why I personally do not like mind my haters at all, because this community is so small that the more people talk trash, the more
you're relevant,
the more I'm known about. So I'm like, if half the people love me and half the people hate me, and especially if someone who doesn't like me talks to someone who does like me, that person's going to be like, well, you're wrong.
Well, I think also,
and that's what's beautiful. And even, not to toot my own horn here or whatever, but like I have successfully converted quite a few haters where people will reach out to me like in private and be like, hey man, I've been shit talking you like in public for like 6 months. I've been leaving you like terrible comments, and I just want to say like, sorry for being a dickhead, because like I actually have paid attention to what you were saying, and you've actually made an impact, and I realized that like my life has gotten better because I like watch your videos. Like I watch them so I could find things to hate on and then like leave mean comments, but I listened, and then I'm like, I'm now repeating things that you said to me to other people, and I'm like, damn, like
that's kind of how I felt about Logan Paul's podcast and stuff, because it's true. Like, I think a lot of people, for example, PewDiePie is another person like this. He's so misunderstood by the general public, because anytime that he's brought up in the news, they will always just bring up his past controversies that are like, some of them are such almost like non-controversies that it's hilarious that they still bring these things up. But it's
like
just
the whole Fiverr controversy.
Exactly. That's the worst one. They always bring it up. But
it's the thing is, if you understood the point of the Fiverr controversy, that means he was trying to expose and embarrass Fiverr for allowing these type of things to happen, and like then he's the bad guy, not Fiverr the bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so the funny thing is like a lot of the times the general public, they just know what the media is saying about someone. So for example, if you're in like a support group or something on Facebook that some of these people don't like you and they start shit talking you, rather than going and watching the videos for themselves, people probably are just going to be like, oh yeah, that guy's an asshole or whatever. But then, when they start watching the videos or whatever, they hear someone else say something different. Maybe they'll check them out, or,
I had that same experience with Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
I didn't like Jordan Peterson because a couple of my friends didn't like Jordan Peterson, and they were regularly talking about how he was this like dangerous, like right-wing asshole who was like mobilizing all these males for a patriarchy to be like sexist. And I was like, yeah, screw that guy. And then I like listened to him on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I was like, wait a minute. Are these people high? I'm like, this dude is just trying to help like angry, sad, disenfranchised young men out of their holes. And
those are the school shooter types. Those are incels. You shouldn't be supporting them. They're the evil ones in our society. They're the one, it's just,
like at one point, like he even reached out to 4chan. He was like, hey, Keck boys. he's like, try my 6-week challenge to like help you be less sad boy or something like that. And
he was like helping these little meme tards.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, I think,
dude, let me share this 1 second. There's a Facebook group I'm a part of. Or no, it's not a Facebook group. It's a page that you can like. I've literally got tears in my eyes because I'm laughing so hard. It's called Jordan Peterson's Never Neverland Ranch for High IQ Lost Boys.
What?
I'm literally crying. It's so funny. It's so funny because it's just like a bunch of memes about like stuff that stuff that like people who really support Jordan Peterson would say. Like it's just so ridiculous.
Can you do your Jordan Peterson impression for us, please?
Oh yes, I'll do my Jordan Peterson accent. You like oh my god. Yeah, it's like, you want everyone to have access to healthcare? Don't you know Stalin killed like 500 trillion people? Like just ignorant, stupid memes that people would say. Anyways, sorry.
Slippery slopes.
Yeah.
All right, so let's try to get a little back on track.
Yeah, but we were talking about people that like people that are misinterpreted in the media and all that kind of stuff, and how actually these people might end up inspiring you. Like, I think that happens with you. You know, like people, they start off thinking that they probably aren't going to like you, and then they hate watch you, and then they realize that they actually like you.
I mean, I've said it before. That's how I became a fan of 6ix9ine. Like, I became a fan of his music, not him, but because I saw him on Instagram every day, and I was like, I hate this rainbow-haired, little, cocky, arrogant, chummy bastard. Like, fuck him. And then...
That was a good insult string.
And then... one day I was like at the gym with some friends, or I was in the car or something like that, and they played this song that was just a banger. And I was like, who this? And like, yo, that's 6ix9ine. I was like, no.
Bitch, are you dumb?
No, it's just like,
But you're stupid.
it's like, it just makes me want to fight people. You know what I mean?
does.
Like it's like, it makes me, it's music that makes me want to like work out harder and fight people. And like, that's exactly what I needed in my life at that time.
You needed to fight people?
No, but just like, like, you know, whatever. It was like, it's like rap, but it's metal.
You
it's
exposed
metal.
me to him too, and then I started fucking with him when I was at the gym.
Yeah,
I
dude,
was listening
it's like,
to it at the gym
it's
because it was like some like just rowdy
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But so I was having another like kind of moment the other day where I was reminiscing back to like my early days of when I got hurt, like when I was still in the spinal cord injury rehab hospital,
when you were just a young wheelie boy.
when I was just brand new wheelie boy, and like all the people that I like looked up to and imitated because they had been wheeling around for longer than I had, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. I don't even remember, I think. But I mean, I watched everything they did. I watched how they pushed. I watched what kind of wheelchair they had. I watched how they transferred. I asked them like what kind of like, you know, like calves they used, or, you know, how they traveled, or what their hobbies were, or, you know, what type of, you know, new invention they were making to scoot around on, or whatever. I mean, I was just like, I want to be like that guy, because
They're like your mentors.
well, yeah, it was just like they looked cool. You know,
Like Kyle would like teach you like, dude, don't do your weight transfers like that. You look like a fucking idiot.
yeah, exactly. You know, he's like, you look
You
like
look like you're about to shit your pants.
looks like you're trying to take a poop. You know, he's like, don't do your weight shifts like that. I mean, I think about, there's three people that I have in mind. There's Kyle, there's Pete, and there's Jeremy, and like all three of those guys still to this day are like just crushing it. Like Jeremy, like operates like a really successful business and runs his own farm and ranch and goes hunting, and like Pete has a couple of kids and like some really cool dogs and goes racing and, you know, builds his own, you know, like inventions and like cool stuff like that. Like Kyle also goes racing, is like way into cars, like is a super foodie, like loves traveling, like really like is a professional worker. Like he makes a lot of money designing like really cool buildings and stuff like that.
Has a bunch of sweet cars.
Sweet cars, yeah. And so it's like those are the type of guys that I wanted to be around, and what I want to hang around, and what I wanted to, you know, emulate. And I kind of had this like moment that like hit me where I'm like, oh shit, like I'm that to other people, but like more people. And how it hit me was like one of those guys texted me and was like, hey man, what you're doing is awesome. Like I've connected with so many dudes in chairs that say that your videos have helped them. And he's like, that's awesome. He's like, I'm so happy for you that you found an outlet to help people, and that you're a great communicator on camera, and that you're talking about things that people just don't talk about. You know, everything from, you know, avoiding depression and addiction, and like doing your weight shifts. And he's like, just all this, you know, all this stuff that like people just don't talk about. And he's like, I love talking to people that have seen and watched your videos, because I know I'm gonna like them.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like that kind of just
Blows your
Like, it
mind.
blows my freaking mind because I'm able to do what they did for me, but at a bigger scale, and that makes me so happy. Like I've said it before and I'll say it again. Like, my unit of measure is not views, it's not subscribers, it's not dollars. It's the people that send me messages in the DMs or in emails, or who, you know, tag me in their posts and just tell the story of how some way, shape, or form I'd given them like confidence, or I'd helped them shift their perspective, or that, you know, they're doing better, or they've changed their mind about,
Or they haven't committed suicide, or they
haven't-
got off drugs, or all kinds of stuff,
like,
dude.
and that's the kind of things that I'm like, fucking hell, dude. Like,
Those messages will make you cry.
this is,
Dude, that whole book is full of those types of messages.
yeah, dude. Like, it just hit me. Like, I knew I was that kind of person. Like, and I knew I was really important and really impactful.
It keeps drooping
yeah,
on you.
Whatever.
Your microphone
I'm
is.
gonna quit messing with it. But I forgotten how important those people were to me in the beginning. And I made a fatal mistake in the beginning, which was after I kind of was like around them for a while. Those guys, I thought they were the cool, you know, the cool ones, but then there was a bunch of people that I thought were like not cool, that I like didn't want to hang out with. And then I ended up like separating myself completely from the disability community, because I thought like, all right, dog, I've graduated. Like, yeah, I use a wheelchair, but that doesn't mean I need these people anymore. And, you know, I kind of like took away my own support system, you know, and I wish I would have kept that longer. I wish I would have continued with adaptive sports. I wish I would have continued, you know, connecting with these people, continued getting involved in the groups, but I didn't, because I was too busy trying to quote unquote get my life back, which, I mean, I did, but I think I really do believe that a big detriment was that I didn't keep at least some of myself still in those groups.
Yeah.
Instead of completely just like ripping the cord and being like, I'm done hanging out with these wheelchair people, you know, like I just like, it was my own ableism, you know, towards myself, but towards all the rest of them, that I was like, ugh. But now it's so the opposite, you know. I like, even my Instagram is almost all other wheelchair users. You know, I love talking about wheelchair stuff. I love hanging out with, you know, at events, and, you know, it's just fun for me, you know. Like, I really appreciate it.
It's cool to be like more in the community and all that. Yeah, because also when you think about like mentors and people that like change your life, you put them up on such a pedestal that to even imagine that anyone thinks that you're that to them, and maybe even more, is like crazy.
Yeah, it's bonkers, but like in the best way possible. Like, I'm super grateful.
Yeah,
you know, and I even think about like
that's even a possibility.
Well, even the fact that like people that I've interacted with on the regular or not on the regular or whatever, you know, just people hit me up like, yo, big dog, you good? You know, like people are like legitimately like, hey man, is everything all right? Like, I haven't seen you around. I haven't talked to you. Like, I haven't texted you. Like, I don't know, this whole accident, you know, the being hit by the car and like the whole blood clot thing. And, you know, like that really humanized me a lot. Not that I wasn't human, you know, I'm very open about my past, and I tell my stories and I talk about whatever, but I think there's this perception I'm like this invincible superhuman, but that's so not true. And I think, you know, this accident or whatever has helped kind of humanize me to the point where it's
with
like,
your audience.
yeah, it's like, oh, even Superman can have bad days.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, even he gets sad, or like, oh, even he deals with,
Yeah,
you
'cause,
know,
like,
like
just-
blood clots and medicines and skin sores and pain and, you know, just like whatever. It's like, oh, like he also is one of us. Like, he's not this magical, you know, unobtainable creature that, you know,
Yeah, well,
exists in the ether.
yeah, exactly. Because also you always talk about how you've overcome all these things in the past, and it's almost kind of like you're out on the other side, but there's still like ups and downs. Like, it's not just like, oh, I was way down here and now I'm just up on here and now it's just a rocket ship to the moon forever.
Yeah, I still have my dips, and I think that I've now been able to expose my process
Yeah,
when before I wasn't able to, you know, like I talked to,
yeah, that makes sense.
to two guys last night that I hadn't seen in a while, And one of them was like, yo, bro, honestly, like, this is such like a testament to your character. He's like, you didn't have to pull over. He's like, there's more capable people that could have pulled over and could have helped, and you decided to just jump out and do it anyway. And he goes, and also the fact that you've very quickly, relatively, you know, like, overcome this. Like, you're doing good. Like, you're talking about being back in the gym. You're out here at the social event. Like, you're getting back to work. Like, all this stuff is good. He's like, you're 8 weeks away from almost dying. Like, you got hit by a, like, you almost
got hit by a car.
He's like, it's a testament to your character because it's clear that you practice what you preach, you know? And I'm like, damn, I never thought of it that way. But it's like, it's true. And, you know, kind of going back to what I was saying in the beginning is like, I get annoyed at some of the stuff that I say in my videos now because I'm now going through it. You know, like, I was watching some old dumb workout video or something, and like at the end of it, it was like, I said something like, no one cares about your excuses. Shut up. Do the work. And I was like, fuck you, past Richard. Fuck you.
I've got excuses, and people do care about them.
I'm like, oh, you up on some personal development bullshit? You know, like, I was just so like, I was like mad at my past self. And I'm like, oh, I get why there's people that initially when they see me or watch my videos are like, they're like, fuck this guy, man. He's full of bullshit. He doesn't even know what it's like to be in the real world. He's a fake paraplegic. He's
over there hobbling around on his 2 legs.
A fake paraplegic who doesn't have any real problems, who doesn't understand pain. You know, it's like, it's like, nah, dude. It's like, I get it. But this is,
your microphone keeps drooping every time you try to fix it.
Every time I try to do it, it goes floppy dick on me.
Yeah, here. So basically, is that the right way?
I don't know.
Ready?
But I have two.
Here we go. There we go.
I've got two very weak.
Let's give a round of applause, everyone.
Yeah, I've got two very weak.
Everyone clap at home.
Got fixed.
Like, dexterity.
Everyone pull over in your cars and clap.
Like, my dexterity is currently like crap because like my wrists are so jacked up right now that like that little movement I could not do.
Yeah. And your elbow is crunchy.
I got a crunchy boy, but yeah.
You know what? Sometimes you need a little helping hand. Oh, and I'll be that helping hand for you, Richard. I don't mind.
Yo, okay, so I saw this thing
no, I'm just kidding.
On the internet the other day that made me want to face palm so hard. Like, I'm so sick of people that aren't disabled making inventions for disabled people that make no fucking sense.
Oh, really?
Like, I'm so tired of it. Like,
it's honestly so funny when you explain it because it makes total sense. But people that are like not disabled are like, I'm going to be the guy that creates the thing that changes wheelchair users' lives. But they don't actually ever stop to consider what wheelchair users actually want or need.
Yeah, I saw it. It was a set of wheels that you would take off your wheelchair and then fold in half to save space.
When you're putting it in your car?
Yeah, you basically like would fold it in half. So you had to have a solid rubber tire. You had to have a bunch of gears and moving parts. It weighed a shit ton. But the problem that they were trying to solve was that wheelchair wheels are too big to fit inside a car, so you have to make them smaller. Hey, people, that's not a problem. That you're making something have more chances.
The frame is bigger than the wheels.
Yeah, it's like more chances of the wheel breaking. It weighs more. It's a solid tire. It's an uncomfortable ride. Why did you think, where is this a problem? Did any person with a disability ever complain about this? No.
This wheelchair would be perfect if only had folding wheels.
Yeah, you just made up some nonsense. And it's like this other thing where like there's this huge...
And there would be like play in your pushes too,
yeah,
right?
Be so much
there'd be
wobble
a little
and
bit of
play.
wobble.
It wouldn't be rigid anymore. And there's also this huge new thing where people are making these like massive, heavy, cumbersome, technologically complicated, battery-draining power wheelchairs that go upstairs. And even attachments for manual wheelchairs. And it's like, able-bodied thinking is this. All right, so wheelchair... people have a hard time going upstairs. Let's make them a wheelchair that gets them upstairs. Problem solved. And it's like, correct. However, you've created a ton more problems. Like, how are we going to transport this thing? How are we going to charge this thing? How often are we really going upstairs and is it getting in the way? Is it draining battery? Like, what is this? How expensive is it? Like, what is this idea? It's like, would you want to carry around a 20-pound backpack that you could never go upstairs unless you were always carrying around a 20-pound backpack?
No.
Would you carry around a 20-pound backpack? No.
It's like the equivalent of like over-engineering something that just has like the simplest problem. Like NASA invented the space pen that was pressurized, and they spent thousands and millions of dollars inventing this pen that could work in space. Meanwhile, the Russians were using pencils.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but
the challenge is the graphite would get into the computers and fry stuff. But.
It wasn't a super simple problem. You're right. Mm-hmm. The graphite comes off and ruins things. But it reminds me of that. It also reminds me of like problems that instead of trying to fix like, hey, how about we build ramps for people instead of like trying to build them this giant thing? I think about it from the video world. People they're like, what's the biggest problem right now? People don't have steady video. Let's make a gimbal that they're gonna like. There's gimbals are cool. Like steady cams are really cool. But there are people out there that think that in order to shoot any video that they're about to shoot, they gotta bust out their giant ass gimbal. And it's like, okay, number one, you got to charge the gimbal. So you got to have extra batteries that are charged in addition to your camera batteries that are charged. Number two, you're not going to be able to be as run and gun because you're having this giant thing that you're having to like wield around with two hands versus being able to like actually fuck with the camera and its settings and zoom and all that. Mm-hmm. And like, if you mess with one little thing, like it comes unbalanced, all this stuff. It basically makes filmmaking extremely inconvenient. Granted, if you really need a super steady shot that's awesome and epic and cinematic and it's going to be, for a action sequence, yeah, use the gimbal. But like, if you're taking I can't tell you how many times I see people walking around with those stupid handheld gimbals for their phones.
Oh God, yeah.
And they're just like videoing their kids. It's like, I get it that it's like a fun toy, but people you don't need a gimbal for everything.
Well,
dude.
this is my thought. It's like people are creating a solution to something that there is not really a problem to. It might be a minor problem, but it's not really a problem.
It solves a problem for certain things.
Like I saw one where it's like, remember that carbon fiber chair that we saw that was just, I mean,
awful.
The worst,
with the lights on it.
I mean, terrible design, huge, bulky shape.
It's ugly as shit.
Sure, it weighs 15 pounds, but it's one of the most atrocious wheelchairs I've ever seen in my entire life. And then I saw one.
And it's completely rigid. Like, it doesn't come apart, right? Like, maybe you could take the wheels off, but
whatever, dude.
It was like a weird shape.
It was like just disgusting. And then even I saw one where like Toyota made this like F1 wheelchair, and I'm like, I looked at it and I was like, okay, there's not cushions or padding on it. The wheels don't really detach. The backrest is way too low.
How was it an F1 wheelchair? It had like a steering wheel?
No, because it was all like sleek and tiny and carbon fiber technology and like all this stuff. It was like,
I was imagining like the little steering wheel with like a screen on it.
No, dude, it was basically this extremely expensive, like highly designed, completely
aerodynamic,
completely impractical wheelchair unless you were like an amputee or a non-paralyzed wheelchair user, or you were like a super low level injury like me. Like, it made no sense to anyone. And again, I'm like, oh, able-bodied people made this. You know, like there's even this stupid thing where it's like,
the ableds are at it again.
I saw this one. It's like, okay, temperature control, regulation, and overheating is definitely something that people with spinal cord injuries have to deal with, especially in the summer. But am I going to add an air conditioning system that's attached to a cushion on my wheelchair? No. I'm just going to get a spray bottle or a washcloth or drink extra water or sit in the shade. I have no desire to attach some type of heavy, battery-powered, cumbersome ass cooler just so I sweat a little bit less. Like, who the fuck thought this was a good idea? Like, there's just so many things. I saw another.
That'd be the equivalent of like an able-bodied person carrying around a backpack that has an air conditioning thing for your back.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's like,
It's so dumb.
you know, I
This
saw.
reminds me of Pimp My Ride.
Yes, dude. Yes.
Now people will just like they'll add,
So
like,
we heard you like changing your own oil, so we put a TV underneath so you can watch tutorials about how to change your oil.
exactly.
Oh, we knew you were a successful barber, so we decided to turn the back seat of your van into a portable barber shop so you can cut hair on the road. It's like, yo, I cut hair at a place. Like, why would I ever want this in my car? I want like hair clippings in the back of my van constantly. No thanks.
Yeah, it just drives me nuts because the people that actually are creating like cool inventions and that are creating stuff for people with disabilities aren't all wheelchair users, but the ones that aren't heavily consult wheelchair users. They are deep in the community. They have test runs, they have conversations, they have people work it out. Like, they are not going to like have a committee about it. They're not going to go to a design company about it. Like, they're just going to plop people in and listen to what they say. And those are the type of accessories that I get stoked about. I think about like push rims, I think about like casters and suspension, and I think about, you know, like certain bags and bag attachments, and like there's a lot of good stuff out there, but it's mostly in a sea of crap.
Yeah, there's a lot of BS and stuff that's just straight up ugly too.
Yeah, I get so
Under-engineered versus over-engineered that doesn't work right.
I don't know. It's like, here, let me solve a problem that you don't have by making something that's more expensive, that's going to be more troublesome for you,
And it's gonna weigh more.
and it's like it's gonna
It
it's
solves
not
this one problem, but it doesn't solve everything else.
it creates more problems than it solves.
Exactly.
And I get so
That's what I think about
get
with the gimbal.
So frustrated when it comes to stuff like that, especially when people are like, excuse my language, like are suckers for it and that buy it. They thinking it's like, oh well, if you have
Did
this,
you just cuss? You said sucker.
what
You said excuse my language. I was just.
did I? Oh, I meant.
You said excuse my language, but they're suckers.
I guess I meant that not to
Dude,
offend.
he just swore.
I meant that in the sense of not to offend the people that have
I
bought
know,
the
I
things,
know.
and then
It was
wait-
just funny that you said excuse my language. And
well, because it was kind of
we've
mean.
been cussing the whole time.
It was kind of mean because
is
it's
kinda
like
mean.
it's like, imagine if you are a person that bought something that you're like, this is gonna make my life so much easier, and you spend a bunch of money on it, and then you're like not regularly using it.
Excuse my language, but you're kind of a little stinker if you bought one of these.
Top 5 YouTubers who have sworn.
Speaking of the Pimp My Ride thing, do you remember that Filthy Frank video, the Pimp My Wheelchair video? Oh my God. We got to watch that sometime. It's funny. It's like a power wheelchair, and the intro,
I didn't know
imitated,
I didn't know it was a Filthy Frank video.
I think it's Filthy Frank, isn't it?
'Cause
You've
I-
seen it, right?
Let me look.
Because
Yeah.
in all my research that I do on all my videos, I'm searching the word wheelchair a lot, and I've seen that video come up a lot, but I don't think it's Filthy Frank.
I thought it was Filthy Frank. I'm pretty sure. Anyways, AJ's going to
That's
verify.
Filthy Frank.
It is Filthy Frank?
It is the Pimp My Wheelchair, and it's like some black dude.
Yeah,
who's
it's
like,
the black dude
yeah,
in the power wheelchair.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
Filthy
yeah.
Frank.
Yeah, okay.
He's like, what's up, YouTube?
That's it. That's it.
The intro is amazing. How they actually
He, like-
animated like a little wheelchair, like how in the Pimp My Ride style. It's
They
so
insult
funny.
and they insult him, and he like tries to insult him back.
Oh my god,
It's so
that's so
good.
funny.
Dude, I saw this funny thing that on TikTok the other day, and it was like talking about the like lore of Filthy Frank, and it was like how Filthy Frank had like this really
Well, Filthy Frank is just a character that Joji made. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And basically, it was this whole thing saying that there was like a thing that he said that became like an important meme that then he became Joji and made another song that became like an important meme on TikTok, and like all this stuff basically saying like Joji's the most important character on the internet kind of thing.
Pink guy.
Yeah. Oh my
Pink
gosh.
guy.
I really loved his old
Yeah.
videos. They were amazing. Filthy Frank was great.
Yo, so speaking
he couldn't exist now though.
No. So it's kind of like Rich Brian's previous name. He went by Rich
Rich
Chigga. And then he also would drop the N-word in his songs a lot. And people were like, hey, hey, guy from Indonesia who's not even Chinese, who's calling himself Rich Chigga, you should stop saying the N-word. Thanks.
Yeah.
So
even Wigga is a little bit weird too. Like
that's kind of
like,
that's kind of insulting. It's like
yeah,
Wigga was a thing that was used when people were like trying to look like Eminem.
Yeah.
Back in the 2000s, they'd shave head, white t-shirt, baggy jeans, and be like, "Man, why you gotta act like you black? Like you a white dude? What are you, some type of Wigga?" And it's like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Can't wait for this to get clipped.
Yeah. People might even be mad about us saying that right now, but yeah, I was watching No Jumper, and they were talking about how Adam 22 is always being called a wigger back in the day.
But now he's not in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. Yo, so speaking of that about bad inventions,
yes.
Can we please talk about backyard rocket scientists?
Mad Mike.
Can we? Okay, I need to preface all of this by saying it's really sad that someone died and no one should have to die. But I mean,
everyone should have to die at some point. But
we are going
tragically, no one.
But we are going to be making fun of this person a lot because he won a Darwin Award.
He's basically, so to give people a little bit of context, this guy Mad Mike, he is a flat earther. He's a very stout. Is that the right word? Stout, like staunch,
whatever.
Staunch.
He is such.
Stout.
He's
a very staunch flat earther.
He is a big time flat earther, and he's so serious about his flat earthness that if he sues people for defamation all the time, if you ever say anything bad about him or make him look bad or critique him, but basically he's this dude who like doesn't trust science or the internet or any of this crap. So he built in his own backyard a rocket that launches him into space so he can take pictures of the Earth's flatness.
He's not even like going into space. He's just like going up high enough to see like
the curvature,
to prove that there's no curvature, but obviously there is.
But like planes can go higher than his rocket goes. But
there's evidence like, oh well, the plane's windows are shaped a certain way so that it makes the Earth curved because they want everyone to still believe it. Like it's so dumb. Like the crazy things that they'll come up with just to try to prove this.
I saw a really cool video that was like, the point of the channel was
like
to bring two opposing viewpoints together and have them have conversations. So it'd be like 3 scientists and 3 flat earthers, and then they would ask them a question, and if they thought that question, they would meet in a circle and then debate. And it was also another one that was like men's rights activists versus feminists, and it was like they would have conversations and debate. It was a really cool channel, but one of them was the difference between flat earthers and scientists. And it's like the thing about flat earthers is they start with a premise. Or they start with the conclusion and work backwards to try to prove that conclusion. But that's not how science works.
Yeah.
Like, and they just deny so much empirical evidence. And it's like, is this really even a conversation we're having right now?
Yeah.
But this guy shot himself.
Yeah. So we're going to play this video real quick, but he made a steam powered rocket that,
I haven't seen this video yet.
You haven't seen the video?
No.
Oh, okay. Well,
so we're about to watch it together.
I just watched it.
Mad Mike dies in this video. You don't see him die, but we're gonna watch.
You see the rocket crash.
Someone die, and like we're not laughing at the fact that he died because obviously that's really sad. But we're laughing at the fact that this guy is going to such lengths that like any regular sane person would be like, you deserved that. Like
the deserve it scale is so high.
The charts.
Off the charts, yeah.
So you'll see here as the launch, you'll see the parachute fall off.
Well, it gets ripped off on launch or something like that.
So
and this is what happens when you're a backyard rocket scientist.
Yeah, here we go. Here, let me turn my volume real fast because the volume is very important. You got it, AJ? Here we go. There's a lot of wind noise, but
those are my favorite kind of noises. Here, I'm gonna hold it so I can watch this.
Yeah. So there goes the parachute.
God.
The parachute's right there. And then you
everyone on the ground. It's not even that high. No. He didn't even get above the clouds.
So if you're watching this, sorry that I was kind of shushing because the noises are kind of important. Like you hear everyone screaming, because in a lot of the videos they cut this. Like in a lot of the news reports, like they don't show the actual impact of the noises. Like to hear the screams and like all that is like I think is important to
He
hear.
didn't even
'cause
make it
it's-
above the clouds. Like,
He didn't go that high. I think honestly the parachute probably affected some of that because you could see that it got kind of blown. Like maybe the parachute stopped
he
some of that
realized
force.
maybe he realized over radio someone was like, "Yo, parachute's out," so he like cut the.
Maybe I don't know if that's how the steam powered rocket would
knows?
work. But
Well, the good news is that he's not alive to sue us for talking about him right now because
Yeah.
even so, Logan Paul made this troll of a flat Earth documentary where he basically tried to convince the entire flat Earth convention that his friend Mike was a flat earther, and then Mike convinced him to become a flat earther, so he like came out as a flat earther at the flat Earth convention and then made this huge documentary like 40-50 minutes just exposing them.
Yeah.
And I guess that he was in the middle of a lawsuit, and now Mike's dead. So
Mad Mike was one of the people in the documentary, and he was suing Logan Paul, which is kind of funny.
So now that lawsuit is dead. But yeah, dude, I don't know, man. I just feel like
Didn't need to use the word dead. I'm just kidding.
I feel the same way. This. Oh, I did it on purpose.
I know.
I did it on purpose.
I know.
I knew it was intentional.
Yeah.
That's why it's funny.
So it's. I feel the same
lawsuit
way
isn't
about.
the only thing.
I feel the same way about flat earthers as I do against conspiracy theorists, and the same way I do against anti-vaxxers. It's like all of you guys have the most broken thinking, and you're trying to piece things together that just don't make any sense.
Well,
And you're trying, and every time you're brought with new evidence, you just get cognitive bias and cognitive dissonance,
Yeah.
and then start to believe your own crazy theories.
The thing about-
even more, it's like
the thing about conspiracy theories, though, is okay. So, what is a conspiracy? Like the actual definition of a conspiracy, it is a group of people conspiring to do something, right?
yes,
So a conspiracy theory is like kind of I don't really like the term necessarily because it doesn't really encompass what we mean when we say it. You know what I mean?
well, because there are conspiracies that happen all the time.
The government is a conspiracy. Like it
Yes.
literally is a conspiracy. People are conspiring to come together to do a thing. Maybe it's behind closed doors. Maybe it's not. The thing about conspiracy theories, as we know them, is they're taking something that's a little fishy or a little wonky and then
putting
trying to
so much meaning behind
and
it.
trying to find evidence to back the weirdness versus trying to back the normality and the plausibility of it. They're trying to find the holes in the argument. They're being extremely skeptical, which you should be. You should always ask questions. You should always be plausible, always skeptical. You know, you shouldn't just trust the first thing people tell you.
I think
but
I think the big quote unquote conspiracy that set everyone off the most was 9/11. And I think after 9/11, well, I mean, there was obviously like the JFK.
There's conspiracies before
There was
that, for
obviously
sure.
like the JFK shooting and the moon landing, and like those are all, you know, conspiracies around those. Oh, well, we never landed on the moon. Oh, well, JFK was, you know, assassinated by blah 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 for this reason, and you know,
He didn't act alone.
And then, you know, the 9/11 comes around, and then obviously there's like a lot of fishy stuff with George Bush and like Dick Cheney and
Let's
like the
be real.
and, like
There's
the war
fishy
and,
things
like,
around 9/11. There's some fishy shit.
there's some very stuff. Like I'm not disagreeing it, but it's like if you follow Occam's razor, if you pay attention to the science, if you understand how these things work, you know, like there's just like a lot to it. And I feel like when you get into the stuff like school shootings, like Sandy Hook, for example, that's like damaging. Or if you get into like flat Earth,
I fell into the Sandy Hook trap.
that's
Honestly, I thought it
damaging,
was.
you know?
I thought Sandy Hook was a conspiracy at first. Like I really did.
What's the one that happened in Florida that was also kind of like that?
I don't remember another shooting, but the interesting thing is this. I think when you dive deep into those things, you forget that there's real people that died in these instances, whether the government was behind it or not. It's still extremely sad, and it's still very, very disrespectful to the families of anyone that passed away.
Yes.
To, you know, protest their funerals or, you know, all these things. It's very, very sad when you see these groups like, you know, the Westboro Baptist Church or like these hate groups or, you know, conspiracy theory groups that are protesting soldiers' funerals or protesting funerals of people that were involved in school shootings and saying how they're crisis actors and like all this stuff. It's like, dude, give it a rest, man. Like these people are trying to grieve and they can't even have, you know, a funeral for their dead fucking kid without you showing up and talking politics. It's like, dude, like, it's not the time for that stuff, man. Like, I get it, you know, if you don't believe it, fine, but like, it's just extremely sad especially for the families involved, because not only did they have like this tragic thing happen to them, I mean, even 9/11, you know, like so many people died, and that's real. Like, that's a fact for sure, you know?
Yeah, it's one of these things that whenever this is how I can easily detect a conspiracy. They and them. When people don't be like, well, that's what they want you to think. Well, wouldn't you think they would do that? Well, you know them. It's always like, who? Who are you talking about? Like, the powers that be. Who? The people with the money. Who?
Oh, you know, the people behind the scenes pulling the strings.
You know, the Illuminati. And I'm like, who? You know, like, it's like, also
George Soros.
Yeah, or the Rockefellers, or like whatever. And also I think about why.
The lizard people.
I think about
They're
why.
the freaking frogs gang.
It's like, okay, who and like why? Like, why would people, let's talk about flat earth still. Why would the government or the people in power want to keep a secret of the flat earth versus the round earth? And it's like, oh, because if they admitted the earth was flat, that would mean they would lose all their power. So what they're going to do is we're going to continue the lie. It's like, well, why would they lie in the first place?
It's so dumb.
It's like so much work. And I think so many people...
We've got supporters all around the globe. The flat earth people. We got supporters
the Flat
all
Earth
around
Society
the globe.
has supporters all around the globe. It's like, say that again, but slower.
You're an idiot.
And then I think about like...
Sorry, that was my internalized round earthness coming out.
Roundism.
My roundism, my internalized roundism was bubbling up there. I'm sorry to say that.
And the thing is, if anyone knows anything about politics or government, you know how unorganized that shit is. Have you ever been to the DMV? Have you ever gone to vote? Like, have you ever done anything?
Have you ever gone to a state-run hospital?
Yes, literally, it's a shit show. It is a unorganized, chaotic shit show. And to think that on a bigger scale, all of a sudden they're like superiorly organized. No, they don't even agree with each other. Like Trump like kicks out and fires people all the time.
But that's what they want you to think. They want on the surface level, it looks like they're all fighting, but really behind the scenes, they're all doing backdoor deals. You know, all the stuff up front, the politic, and that's just to distract you. They are back behind the scenes agreeing on shit.
I will say one thing that I'm not a huge fan of, this doesn't apply to all of them, is the idea of the billionaire. Like, the billionaire has more power, I think, than anyone in the entire U.S. And the billionaire can change laws due to lobbying. He can help politicians get elected. A billionaire can create or destroy a bunch of things. You know, I think about like the Koch brothers, but then I also think about
Is
like
that the Koch brothers.
Thank you, Koch brothers. It's spelled cock with a K. It's very weird, but they say it's Coke. I don't fucking understand.
The Kochs.
They're all about into like oil and natural gas and like.
I was watching a video about the Koch brothers last night.
You know, and like a lot
wasn't about conspiracies though.
It's like the type. Oh, Jesus, Andrew, I just got that motherfucker. What about conspiracies though?
It's just like trying to talk about something serious, and he's like, "Cock brothers,
making dick jokes over here." Fucking Christ. This is the type of stuff that you would hear.
I watch gay porn.
This is the type of stuff that you guys are going to find on the previous behind the scenes podcast on Patreon. So
Richard hates billionaires.
Anyway, it's not that I hate billionaires, but like there's two types of billionaires. Billionaires that use...
I think there's more than one type, but
yes,
I mean, there's more than two, but
that use their wealth to improve the welfare of humanity and the planet, and then there's people that use their wealth for their own personal welfare and the destruction of the planet.
Yeah.
I think there's two different kinds.
Did you watch H3's podcast where they're talking about this?
I haven't made it all the way through. I think I've got like another hour to go. But like Ethan and Dan both had valid points. I think I was more on Ethan's side than I was on Dan's side.
Yeah, it was definitely more on Ethan's side because the thing about it is like Bernie Sanders, he's been saying like billionaires shouldn't exist.
The billionaires should not exist.
Yeah, and it's like I get the concept. I think someone like Dan always kind of has these opinions on that podcast where I think Dan is like a cynical type person. He's got the opinion that he's never going to be super successful. He's never going to be super rich. He's always going to be kind of where he's at. He's never,
or maybe he's just happy with where he's at,
Yeah, but like I also think he's just very content with being like average or regular, whatever. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But the thing is, when people villainize and demonize someone just because they're super, super wealthy and put them in this category that like they are inherently evil. Like Dan was like, yeah, well, he's talking about Jeff Bezos and he's like, well, he should pay his employees fairly. And it's like, well, let's imagine he did and he still had $1 billion. Is he still evil? Like, let's imagine he's the best.
Well, I also think about this. It's like,
after he makes $999 million, what's he supposed to do? Every single penny that he makes goes to the government? No. Because we know how the government spends their money.
It's so much. I would honestly trust a corporation or a billionaire with money than I would the government any fucking day.
Of course. Because
Dude,
of like no big
literally-
contracts and how like the government is paying so much in Medicaid and Medicare to drug companies that are charging out the ass for the drugs simply because they know that the people, the end consumers that are actually taking these drugs aren't even the ones buying it. It's all through insurance. It's a giant fucking scam.
If you want to talk about how much of a fucking money waste the government is, talk to someone who's ever been deployed active duty. Here's one example. They hire private contractors to do your laundry. You're not allowed to do your own laundry.
Really?
You have to put it into a bag. The bag gets picked up, it gets laundered, and it comes back to you. It costs $100 per bag of laundry. That is just one example.
Why? Because like the soldiers' time is better used for other things?
I don't understand. I don't fully know, but all I know is that there is a company that is a laundry company that charges the U.S. government $100 per bag to do soldiers' laundry, and there are hundreds of thousands of bags of laundry put through every week. And
I'll do a soldier's load for free. Damn it. I meant to say I'd take it. God damn it. I ruined the joke. It was still funny.
For those of you on video, enjoy my face.
Let me try that again. Hell, I'd take a soldier's load for free. There we go. Anyways, that was really stupid. Sorry.
Boo. That gets a boo.
That gets a boo.
Big fat boo.
Are my dumb jokes landing?
What was the dumb joke earlier that you said a boo about that I was like, oh, I remember. It was like, I don't remember what this is from. It was from something that I watched when I was a kid or something. It was like, another day, another dollar. And then someone else chimes in. They're like, another hoe, another holla. And like Rage is like,
Oh, God.
boo.
Another day, another dollar, mega ho holla. Hey.
Yeah, because we were like getting out of the car. We were like, coming up the stairs and we were like,
Oh, no. Rest in
no.
peace.
What happened?
Maybe
it like burned out.
Maybe it burned out.
Dude, you know what that is? It's a sign from the crystal gods.
You know what? I'm not even going to.
Yeah, let's not fuck with it.
We're in the middle of an
We're
episode.
cursed now. It's not lit up.
Yeah, it's not lit.
Okay, we got.
Anyway,
we
sorry.
got 8 minutes.
Yeah, I bought a new car.
I like that. I think that's an 8-minute subject right there.
Yeah, so I got the last week we talked about leasing versus buying. I ended up leasing a brand new Mazda 3 hatchback, which was the car that I was saying that I was interested in last week, I think. So
You know what's also
it's sick.
interesting about this whole process is it was the first time that I had to like officially and with documentation like prove your quote unquote employment. Andrew and I are in basically a partnership. It's more complex than that. He's more than just like my employee, but like I pay him a check, right?
Yeah, for editing and shooting all the videos and stuff.
And way more than that.
Way more.
And way
but
more
that's
than
like
that.
the main thing.
But it's funny because it's like on paper through taxes or whatever, he's like an independent contractor. So like they had to call me and they're like, why are you paying him in personal checks? And I'm like, oh, because he's an independent contractor. Well, what does he do? Well, how much money does he make? They had to verify like all like your income and like all this stuff.
Because I'm doing a lease option, so they're also trying to verify that I'm gonna have steady income to pay the lease payments. Because the other thing that's interesting about cars, the guy that was kind of doing all the paperwork with me, he's like, it's actually kind of easier and like less paperwork almost sometimes when you're buying a house. He didn't say it was less paperwork, but he said like it's kind of an easier investment of like buying a house.
It's a longer
versus
waiting
buying
period.
a car.
Yeah.
Because a car can be stolen. A house is going to sit there. So if you can't make the payments, they know where to find you and they know where to find the house. If you don't make the payments on your car, you could be in Brazil. You know, like you can literally drive to Brazil.
Drive it to Mexico or whatever.
You can drive it anyway, you know, so they've got to really make sure they're locked down of who you are. Same thing with rental car agreements. Like I know Ed Bolian on VinWiki, we talked about him briefly earlier in this episode.
Oh, how about the one that drove from Nashville to Atlanta at like 120 miles an hour?
He's got a bunch of crazy clips on his channel because he used to run a rental car for an exotic rental car agency. And he would have stuff all the time where, like, you know, someone was supposed to return the car after a week, and then all of a sudden they stopped returning the calls, and then all of a sudden the GPS thing got taken out. And, like, you know, there's all these crazy things, and they're just going on a wild goose chase. Luckily, with exotic cars, it's a lot easier to spot them because it's like if you've got a blue Lamborghini, you're going to notice it a lot more easily than a silver Camry. But, yeah, it's pretty interesting. And, yeah, it's kind of crazy because they're basically they're letting you drive off the lot with like a brand new car. So they got to make sure that you're able to like make the payments. Cause you know, for all they know, I could just be going in there and lying. Like they've got to verify all this stuff. So
what was interesting is, like they called the place, they called me and they were like, I think I'm talking to a business, but like the voicemail didn't say it was a business. So I'm looking for the business Wheels to Walking. Is this Wheels to Walking? I need to talk to a manager or a supervisor to verify employment of employee Andrew Deitch. Just give us a call back. And I'm like, oh dude, this is real shit right now. And then
because it was the bank.
Yeah. So the capital lender or whatever it's called.
Yeah. JP Morgan is the financial,
but it was
whatever.
like Mazda Capital that was calling me. And then they were like, okay, like what's his name? Like how long's he been working for you? How much money does he make? You know, blah, 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 blah. Like what's his title? Like all this shit. And like most of it, I just like fudged because I knew, I knew what.
He's the senior advisor of all of the video team of the Wheels to Walking Corporation. Like,
I just tried to make it sound pro.
Yeah, exactly.
And they totally pull a fast one on me. Like I gave them the reference number and they're like, "Oh, is this for so and so?" And I was like, "I've never heard that my name in that life." And they're like, "Oh, well, it says it's for you." I was like, "No, I've literally never heard that name in my entire life. I think you got the wrong person." I'm like, "The reference code was," and I like gave it to them again, and they typed it in. They're like, "Oh yeah, okay, we see." You know, because I guess they thought that like you had given the number and then they called you, so then like you picked up the phone and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm employed by me."
Yeah, that's what they wrote on the thing. They said that they were like the number goes back to the customer, and I showed them. I'm like, I've been sitting here the whole time. I haven't taken any calls like that. The only call I took was from you, and the numbers on here, one's my number, one's your number, and I'm like. Obviously, and he called me to tell me that he talked to them. And so then the main manager guy was like, well, no, that's crazy. I don't know why they would have put that the number reroutes back to the customer. And I'm like, it doesn't reroute back to me. You would have seen me take the call and being like, "Oh yeah, Andrew is employed by me." Like, you know, I didn't say
I'm
those
sure that
things.
type of scammy shit works though. You know?
I'm sure, yeah. You know, because you could just list it. You know, you'd say that you're employed by your brother, and your brother picks up the phone, and he's like, "Oh yeah, he's been a great employee." Blah blah blah, all this stuff. You know. But I did have to print out like bank statements.
What was real
show.
interesting is like we're coming up on like tax season, and then I also have to like. For Wheels to Walking, like figure out what type of entity it is, and sometimes like if you don't specialize it, they automatically like put you into an entity whether you choose it or not. And so I knew like off the top of my head, I was like, oh well, I'm a blah blah blah, and Andrew is a yada yada, and he does this under this practice and this and that, and I was doing so much research because like I needed to like iron out and figure out what the hell is going on. So I'm like, you know, like getting it all.
Yeah, but it was just like so weird. Yeah, that whole experience. But it's cool because I ended up with a brand new car. It's pretty awesome. I have like a 36-month lease, so it's like 3 years. But basically, the Mazda 3 base, like I literally just got the base model, like the standard. There are so many good options that come standard. Like it's crazy how good that car is base model. Like it's really nice.
Well, what are other cars in that class? What, like the Civic, the Accord?
The
Accord's too nice. So the Civic,
you've got the Volkswagen Golf, you've got if you're talking about hatchbacks versus sedans. But if you're not necessarily even specifying like a hatchback, you've also got like the Hyundai Elantra, you've got the Toyota Camry. You know, there's plenty of cars in that class.
I basically mean like the 25 grand and below 4-door.
Yeah,
class.
exactly. Yeah, you've got, you know, pretty much those.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Mazda just blows a lot of the stuff out of the water. I mean, like, you get a base model Civic, it is not nearly as cool and nice as the
Or a Toyota.
Yeah. And it's got like there's so many things, especially after watching like Doug DeMuro videos where I'm just like realizing bad design in cars and things like that. There are things in new cars that like infinitely piss me off, and I know that if I would have to like drive that car for, you know, 3 years, I'd be like annoyed every single day of my life that this is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully there hasn't been anything that I've noticed yet on the Mazda that's like that, but like they really nailed a lot of things very, very well. Number one, the AC head unit is separate from the entertainment area. So you've got a screen up above that's for like, you know, your music and your navigation, blah, blah, blah.
Is that touchscreen or is
no,
that done with a knob?
It's like the iDrive with BMW.
Yeah.
It's like the knob. So it's not touchscreen, which I actually like.
I don't like touchscreens, honestly.
Yeah, touchscreens in cars are not that intuitive because you have to, number one, take your eyes off the road, and number two, like, there's no feedback, you know,
There's
like
no physical button.
Yeah, and with the AC controls, it's like very simple. You've got the fan up and down. You've got the knobs for the temperature, which I hate when the temperature is a button because you got to keep clicking that shit. Like, because most of the time on temperature, you want it all the way hot or all the way cold. Like, and then once you get it to the temperature,
my Jeep is like that where you have to like, there's no like hot, cold. It's like, all right, it's at low, and then you go to 60, 61, 62, 63, and you got to keep tapping it all the way till it's like 78 or 80, and then it flips over to high. And I'm like, can I just have a slider?
Yeah, exactly,
you know,
right?
And there is a digital slider, but it doesn't respond well. I have to go into the touchscreen and like try to slide it up really fast, but because it's a car touchscreen and not a phone touchscreen, it's just
yeah, exactly. And like there's just little things about it that I'm like, I like that someone actually thought about this, considered it, and then like changed it or whatever. You know, there's just a lot of really good features on it. Another feature that
Where does Mazda come from, by the way?
Japan. It's a Japanese company. Yeah, another cool feature that I didn't know I was driving last night, it has this feature where it has automatic brights, and when a car comes, it turns them off.
Ooh, okay, that's cool.
I didn't even know it, and it was on. I'm like, why are my brights on? And then a car came, and it turned them off. Like, so it senses when another headlight is like...
So you got automatic brights, automatic... You got adaptive cruise control, you've got lane correction, you've got blind spot detection. Do your wipers automatically come on when the
rain sensing. Yeah, that's another thing.
You bastard. That's good.
Yeah, like there's just a lot of really good things about it that come standard. Like, I can't believe that all those options are on the base model. Like, it doesn't have heated seats. It doesn't have power seats. But I'm thinking also all the windows are auto. Like, you know how like a lot of times the back seats, you got to hold the back windows down.
Oh,
you can do auto for all four windows. It doesn't have a sunroof.
That's fine. I don't like sunroofs anyway.
Yeah.
I never opened mine up. Like, what's the point?
There's just like things that are like compromises that I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Like, you know, power seats is one thing that's like, if you're the only one driving it, you adjust it to how you like it, and then you pretty much leave it there. You know, like you don't need all these extra little things.
Seriously.
Yeah, the steering wheel is really cool. Like it's like a 3-pronged steering wheel. It looks really dope. Like it looks kind of like a racing style steering wheel.
Oh, it's got the two here and the one at the bottom.
Yeah, it reminds me of a BMW steering wheel. And the interior is just like, I mean, AJ, you saw it. Like
it's really nice. I mean, all standard, and
it's crazy.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, you really got the deal here.
That feels like you're in like an Audi or like a Mercedes or something.
Yeah, like my mom has a Q7, like I think it's 2018. Just there's some things in it that I'm like, wow, because the entertainment system, it's really nice to have it like on hand, like right next to the shifter.
Yep.
Even though it's automatic, whatever. But, you know, changing that sort of stuff. And then
it's easier to do it when it's down here versus up here. You
exactly.
know? Just like, I was just like, wow, you really, you picked a good car.
Yeah, I'm excited about it, man.
And I think what's also beautiful currently about car purchasing is like, in today's day and age, you really can't buy a bad car anymore.
It's true.
Like, bad cars don't exist. Like, I would not say that 10, 15, 20 years ago, where you could still pull some cars off the lot and you'd be like, oh, especially like cars that are made for enterprise purposes. Like that still have like manual windows and like not even
really plasticky, shitty feeling.
Ford used to do that a lot. I used to hate Ford commercial vehicles because they were just
shitty.
They were just the most bare bones. It was like they intentionally tried to make it crappy so that they could make it cheaper.
My Mustang.
Is it?
It's literally like driving a plastic car.
What year's your Mustang?
2006.
Okay, I was gonna say that's about 15 years ago, 14 years ago. Yeah, when Ford was doing that, it was like, I remember one time I got into a brand new F-150 and it didn't have door pockets or door handles. It only had manual windows. The radio was that green, like,
have that
green shit.
And the little green dots for the screen.
And the display was still like, physical. And the dash was like, you'd tap on it with your fingers. And you'd be like, that doesn't belong in a car.
Is this a toy?
It was like the seats were like this cloth, and it was like nothing was powered. You couldn't even tilt the shit. Like,
dude, that's another thing in the Mazda. The armrests are so padded, like they squish. They're like this thick. Like, you know how sometimes when you're driving for a long time and your elbow starts to hurt because you've just been, I'm sure you get it, because like you're hand controlling. You're just sitting for a long time and your elbows start to like get
mainly my butt hurts, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, there's just like a lot of
if
things.
If I drive for more than an hour, I always break out my cushion.
Yeah, the one complaint I have about it, this is so minor. I'm gonna sound like such a dummy.
No, but this is so Andrew.
The volume on the steering wheel. I wish it was a little scrolly knob
instead of buttons.
Yeah, so it's buttons on the front, and the way that the volume knob is you click it in for mute, and then you like press up and down for volume up and down. And the thing is, it's really easy to accidentally mute
when you're turning it up and down.
Yeah, so it's like kind of annoying. But the other thing is, next to the little iDrive, like little spinny wheel to control the head unit or whatever, there's another small knob that's volume. So you can be driving and still do volume, and it's here instead of up here, which I like, because it's literally right next to your hand. You got the volume right there. So yeah, I'm like, it's whatever.
That's cool.
It's so small. It's like literally so dumb.
Can't wait to learn more about that later.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, dude, I'm glad this was a good episode.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a good episode.
If you want more of these episodes and can't wait another week, go on Patreon. They're on there.
It's like $1, literally.
You get
go listen to 40 episodes. You can binge them all in a month.
For $1, yeah. And what you're doing is you're not just paying for the episodes. You're helping support us create more content.
True that.
You also there's more perks available if you
get videos early.
Go up in tiers. You can get video early, get your name on the videos, and there's even a tier that I keep kind of secret because I don't want a lot of people to know about it. But you can get a tier. You get monthly phone calls with me. Yeah, 30.
I'm gonna sign up for that.
30-minute video calls. Like it's like actually like we chat, we chat, we chat,
we fap.
Fat. I said like FaceTime. We chat.
I'm a webcam girl. We fap.
I'm on OnlyFans now.
Oh hell yeah! Dude.
Wheels to rolling fans.
Oh my god.
Wheels to OnlyFans. Yo, it's so funny. Okay, side note before we close out because we have to. We're going over. Jalila was like, if we're ever broke, I'm gonna make you take feet pics and sell them online.
Shit.
I'm like, paraplegic feet. What's up? There's actually an account on Instagram that follows me called Paraplegic Feet.
That gets us fat. All right. Bye, everybody.
All right, follow some places.
Follow some places. See ya.